I am worried we are about to have another red wave that never comes in the year 2024. Complacency is not an option this year. That is why my message to you today is we got to ask ourselves who we are as Americans. Who are we as conservatives? Who are we as citizens of this nation? What does it mean to be a citizen of the United States of America in the year 2024?
What does it mean to be a citizen of the United States in 2024? We're going to answer that question and so much more here today. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Kev Ferris, 23-year-old conservative activist, host of Speechless, which is not only a radio show, it's obviously a podcast right here on wherever you're watching from, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, anything like that. And wherever you guys are watching from, make sure that you do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment what you think, share it with your friends, all that fun stuff, because we're going to cover news here that nobody else is covering, or at least in a way that nobody else is covering it. So please make sure you guys do that. Once again, like, subscribe, share, and comment, all that fun stuff. I'm Kev Ferris, and let's get into what we're going to talk about today, everybody. We've got a lot of different things we're going to talk about. Vivek Ramaswamy does a push-up contest with my good friend Fabian Garcia. That's going to be up first. Why was Vivek talking? Why were a lot of people talking? Well, there was the People's Convention in Detroit, a Turning Point USA conference that got very, very interesting, and we're going to cover a little bit about that. Also, we have some attendees that will be joining Breakaway USA tomorrow, so make sure you guys tune in for that. But definitely subscribe, ring that notification bell so you guys don't forget to come into there. We're going to cover Trump's speech at this entire event. Trump gave a really interesting speech, got a lot of different things. And I want to contrast it with some of the things going on with Joe Biden, because Joe Biden also had a very interesting weekend. We're going to talk about all that, a Pride Month update, a debate regarding the draft. Me and Josh Bender, if you guys know Josh Bender, he'll be joining me today to discuss the draft. Maybe Trump's VP, Kevin Spacey, is homeless, and so much more. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese going at it, more WNBA drama, all of that. But let's get right on into the very beginning, what we were just covering there with Vivek Ramaswamy. I want to play that whole clip for everybody from the very beginning. This is him at the Turning Point Action Conference, the People's Conference. Here's this.
I am worried we are about to have another red wave that never comes in the year 2024. Complacency is not an option this year. That is why my message to you today is we got to ask ourselves who we are as Americans. Who are we as conservatives? Who are we as citizens of this nation? What does it mean to be a citizen of the United States of America in the year 2024? It means we believe in the ideals of 1776. That is what it means to be an American. 2024 is 1776 in the United States of America. And you guys are like the revolutionaries who fought that revolution. A lot of young people, it's why I love coming to these Turning Point events. It's going to be your generation that actually saves this country like it did the first time around. I am worried.
2024 is going to be the next 1776. Now, I can only imagine how fired up the libs are to hear that. Look, that fires me up, that entire idea. 2024 is going to be the next 1776. I absolutely believe it. But he even does reference at the beginning, we cannot allow 2024 to be the next 2022, the big red wave that wasn't. And so we need to fight. We need to have this revolutionary mindset. Now, once again, as Vivek would say, the left is going to lose their minds that we're talking about as if this is a revolution. They're going to say, oh my God, it's going to be an insurrection. It's going to be an insurrection. Wah, wah, wah. That's what they're going to sound like. Just as annoying, just like the nails on the chalkboard that they're complaining is. But the fact of the matter is we need to vote like it. Look at how much damage can be done in just 4 years under Joe Biden. And we know that Joe Biden is really not this evil genius or anything. He's Pinocchio with the strings to hold him down. He's got him. And so we need to act like this is a revolution. And so to act like this is a revolution, in fact, you got to even challenge this guy. Let's put him to a test. That's exactly what Fabian Garcia, a Breakaway USA host, did while he was at the People's Convention. This is a real thing that actually happened. I have the video right here. Let's pull this up. This is from Instagram. We'll have probably a better video of it tomorrow, but take a look and listen to the push-up contest between Fabian Garcia and Vivek Ramaswamy. Here's this.
You can
see Fabian right there.
Good push-up. Good pull-up. Let's do it. Okay, there we go. Work it. Who's our money on here? Vivek, how we get rid of the FBI? 4-2. What about the CIA? How is that included?
50, 60, 70.
Let's go. Let's go. Fabian, full push-up. Come on now.
Man,
I love that. Give me.
the revolutionary actually owning up to a push-up contest. This is not the first time he's done this. I knew Fabian had a plan to do this, and all while holding the Freedom 2.0. Mine's almost empty here. I've been staying hydrated, but I love it. I love it. This is the kind of energy we need, and this is how, look, for decades, the Republican Party and conservatives have had a hard time getting to the youth. They've come off as rigid. They've come off as boring, as inept in terms of connecting with young people. This is the kind of guy. Now, a lot of people are floating Vivek as a VP pick. I don't see it. I've talked about this on the show before. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later with Josh Bender. But Vivek has a great way of connecting with young people, and that's something simple that can do it. A push-up contest. Accepting the challenge, because it shows a metaphor. It shows something deeper. It shows something deeper than just having a push-up contest. It shows this man who is going up on a stage claiming that we need to vote with revolutionary intentions, a man who projects this idea of not backing down from a fight, a man who basically ran for president when pretty much no one knew him and polled at about 10%, a pretty impressive feat, who now has a national kitchen table name recognition. This man will not back down from anything, let alone a push-up contest at a conference while he's walking to his car. It's incredibly impressive. And I wanted to get Fabian on to talk about this today, but of course, Fabian was in transit as the People's Convention ended today. And so he did have this message that he had for me so that I could advertise this show a little bit. So here's this.
This is Fabian Garcia from Breakaway USA. You have to watch the push-up contest that I did with Vivek Ramaswamy on Speechless with Kev, coming up very soon. And tomorrow, tune in to the full show that we're going to go over what happened at the People's Convention with Turning Point USA and Donald J. Trump. Tune in tomorrow. I will see you when I get back from the airport.
He is in flight right now, as I understand it. So thank you, Fabian, for that video. I don't know if we'll ever actually see this, but Fabian, of course, is kind of like the head of our Breakaway USA and everything. And so he will be on tomorrow. We might even have some more to break down exactly what happened at the People's Convention. I am usually at Turning Point conventions. I have been predisposed by getting ready for law school. And so I'm so happy that they were able to go and that we were able to get such an amazing clip there. But there's so much more to discuss when it comes to the People's Convention, as it's become known. The People's Convention, we have one specific part of it that was going absolutely viral, and that was Donald Trump's speech. But I think the interesting thing is what happened even prior to the fact that Donald Trump was even there. In fact, before Donald Trump went to speak to a group of thousands of activists through Turning Point USA, he went to speak on a panel. So prior to the People's Convention, President Trump attended a roundtable discussion at a church in Detroit Saturday afternoon in an effort to reach out to Black voters. And now this is getting a lot of attention. The term Blacks for Trump has been trending quite a bit on Twitter. But during the discussion, 180 church pastor Lorenzo Sewell told Trump that he was, quote, humbled by the former president's visit. And it's interesting to see exactly what he compared it to. And so let's take a look and a listen to this clip from that visit.
President Trump, I'm so humbled that you would be here. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Very humble, really nice. Thank you. My honor.
I want you to hear that one more time.
And he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Very humble, really nice. Thank you. My honor.
Look, and so here's the thing that I think is interesting, and one of the topics I want to discuss a little bit more throughout this show is the black vote. Look, African Americans make up about 13.5%, give or take, of the American population. And to discuss them as a group, to discuss black people as a group is considered taboo nowadays. You can't be honest about it. You can talk about white people. Heck, you can even talk about Asians to some extent. But if you try to talk about black people as a group, unless you're discussing the fact that they must be Democrat because that's the plantation that that's forced upon them, unless you're saying that, you're going against the mainstream narrative, and all of a sudden you're deemed racist, quote unquote. And so be ready. After I talk today, I guarantee you that's probably what I will be called. But I've been called it before, and the term is relatively meaningless. But I want to talk about this idea of that Donald Trump went and visited the, quote, hood. That's what this pastor said. He will go and visit the hood. President Obama never came to the hood, so to speak, right? President Joe Biden, he went to the big NAACP dinner, but he never came to the hood. So thank you. Sowell said. Interesting. Team Trump also announced that the former Detroit Democratic Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick is endorsing Trump for president. Kilpatrick was sentenced to 28 years in prison for taking part in a racketeering and bribery scheme while in office. But Trump commuted his sentence in 2021 after the former mayor spent just over 6 years in prison. He said, quote, "I can never thank President Trump enough for what he's done for me and my family by giving me freedom," Kilpatrick said, according to the Trump campaign announcement. "But I believe this election and the issues involved are personal to every family and every person in America." Trump was joined by several prominent black Republicans at the church roundtable, including former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Ben Carson. I love Ben Carson. Rep. John James from Michigan, Rep. Byron Donalds from Florida. And in fact, they said historic rates of black voters now support President Trump. And the reason is simple. Black voters know that President Trump is the only presidential candidate who can deliver results on day one because he already has. And this is true. This is true. He gave an unprecedented amount to historically black colleges and universities. He, in fact, also did a lot of work to try to close the prison pipeline. For many people, he tried to work on making economic development centers for low income areas, which were heavily predominantly black, and a lot of things. And people are really noticing this. But I also think that there's another fact. But I want to even prove further that Trump has a surge with black voters that truly is unprecedented. Take a look and a listen to this clip from Fox News right here. Oh, they're going to try to give me an ad first, so we're going to let that play. But former President Trump's surge in the polls among black voters is a troubling sign for the Biden campaign, a data reporter warned Friday. And this is also of May 17th, so this is about a month ago. So let's go here. Let me make sure I unmute this site. Here we go.
Number for Donald Trump, 22%. Where was Donald Trump at this point 4 years ago in the polls? He was just at 9% of the vote, so he's seen more than a doubling in his support among African Americans. This margin, which was in the 70s just 4 years ago, look at where it is now, 69 minus 22. That puts it in the 40s. My goodness gracious. If this held through the general election, obviously we're still months away, this would be by far the best performance for a Republican candidate among black voters in a generation, 2 generations, probably since 1960 and Richard Nixon against John F. Kennedy. That's how long we're really talking about when we're looking at this margin here. This could be a truly historic margin. It's quite a troubling sign for the Biden campaign.
It truly is a a troubling sign for the Biden campaign. In fact, so much so that Biden's campaign Biden's policy has started to change because of it. They're no longer looking to ban menthol cigarettes because of their popularity with black voters, along with the fact that Biden is constantly trying to pander further to the black community. And that is why he is shuffling out Barack Obama further to events. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But we look at all this, and I really also want to talk about simply the idea that they did this themselves, the Democrats, right? What they have done for so long is they have pushed this idea that every single black person is being kept down by the system. That's what the left has done. We've heard it. All black people are oppressed, and they are all just as much victims of slavery today as they were back in the 1800s. That's the message that the Democrats push. Anything that happens to you is not your fault. It's the governments, the systems, the police, whoever. And then what they do, and so not to mention the fact that disproportionately, black men, especially, and black women to some extent, make up our prison system. And we could argue as to why that is, why that isn't, or why that exists. But when you look at that, and then you also have this message being pushed to them in the mainstream by the media, and by the Democrats and the leftists, that it's not really their fault, that they're just a victim of their environment, that they're a victim of the man, and that they're being persecuted. And then you have Donald Trump, who, yes, he was president. Yes, he's very wealthy. Yes, he's white. But he gets indicted on a bunch of different charges, including RICO charges down in Georgia. And then he gets convicted. And the narrative behind it is that it's because of a corrupt system. Look, Vince Everett Ellison went on to Tucker Carlson's podcast and said that Donald Trump was the first real black president. And really what he was saying is this entire idea that Donald Trump has lived more of a black experience, at least in the media narrative. In the media narrative, when I say the media narrative, the narrative that's currently being pushed, the idea that he's a victim of the justice system, that he didn't actually do anything, free Trump, trends just as much as they say free other rappers like 50 Cent and others are coming to Trump's defense and supporting him. Donald Trump is winning over the black people, the black community, because of the leftist narrative. That's why he's winning, along with the results that he has produced. And I think that's really important to point out. And I want to compare that too, because you heard the line. You heard that line that I played earlier from that pastor that said Donald Trump actually went to visit the hood. Well, it's interesting because ironically, Charlemagne the God, the podcaster whose show Joe Biden infamously said the "you ain't black" line, he had a podcast episode earlier this week with Andrew Schultz. And on his podcast, and that was posted to YouTube on Friday, he criticized Democrats for engaging in, quote, goofy actions due to their lack of communication with voters they claim to represent. And in fact, he uses a very similar line that we heard just a few moments ago. So take a look and listen to this clip right here.
Like President Biden don't know what's going on. Kirk Franklin is on stage performing. The whole front row is Joe Biden.
The whole front row is Joe Biden?
I just want to know why Joe Biden is just sitting there like he's fucking
He's
buffering.
scared. There's black people everywhere. The guy's from 1800.
He's buffering. Yo, you know what, though? I thought about that, though. I did think about that. I was like, yo, Joe
His
Biden.
memory is from back in the day.
I was like, yo, Joe Biden probably was thinking, yo, there hasn't been this many black people on the White House lawn since they built this place.
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he thought they was working. He's like, what's going on? Why is everyone dancing?
He got to have some type of flashbacks like that.
Oh, happy day.
I just don't know. Duval posted the best shit. Duval said, let me read what Duval said. Duval said, hold on.
He's terrified, yo. He's like, yo, get me out of there.
Duval said, I'm just wondering, what did they expect to gain from posting this? They really thought this made them look normal. Who's in charge of marketing to regular folks? He's right.
Yo, I think Biden needs to show up to Duval Day.
That would
I think
be
he
fire.
needs to show up to Duval Day. He
That
need
would
to
be
go to
fire.
Jacksonville. He needs to show up to Duval Day.
That would be fire.
He might win.
By the way, you got to do stuff like that, man. That's all I'm saying. Like,
where should he show up? What do you think he should go?
Anywhere in the hood. Get off the hill and get to the hood. Those black people on the hill got y'all doing corny, goofy stuff like that. And they got y'all, like one thing about those elected officials, especially the Democrats, man, they talk about the people they don't even talk to. You know what I'm saying? And they claim to talk for the people they don't even talk to. Go down to Duval Day and see what the hood really thinks about something, man. I've been said that. And by the way,
which party should they go to? Like, let's say the thing.
Even if you don't want to go to the hood, go down to one of the HBCUs in Jacksonville. Go down to one of the HBCUs in Atlanta. Have town halls.
Go to the hood. What hood should they go to?
VP Kamala Harris should pull up to the hood, not President Biden.
Bro, Donald Trump went to the Bronx.
He definitely was in the Bronx.
Where should Biden
He
go?
bought out Sleepy Hollow and Chef G.
I'm saying, like,
and this is why I say this is why. And if I'm not going to actually play it with the sound. I'm going to let it play in the background here. But like we look at why, like the Democrats are flabbergasted. They're like, oh my gosh, how could Trump be winning over the black community? How could this be happening? Don't they know he's an evil racist like we paid CNN to say? Don't they know? And then you have people like, what did I play the other day? It was just a little over a week ago. If you guys follow Breakaway USA, make sure you guys follow me, follow Breakaway USA. But I had 50 Cent's ex-girlfriend. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the name. But she said she had to, quote, remind 50 Cent that he was black. And that Donald Trump was a racist. You have these people, and this is what it is they've been pandering to the black community for so long that they've taken it for granted. Granted, pun intended, Donald Trump is not winning the majority of African Americans right now. But the margin, as we saw with that CNN poll, has taken a stark difference. He's winning 22%. Definitively 22% of the black vote. And why? Because the Democrats have made him to be the most African-American presidential candidate in American history. His experience and the way that he presents himself is more in line with black culture. He calls it like it is. He has been a quote-unquote victim of the system, which is what the left has told black people they are for millennia. Of course he's going to identify more with black people than Joe Biden, who freezes up, stammers, and can't get a word out. Man, I still have so much more to talk about. I wanted to get to, I might have to skip some stories today, but everybody make sure that you guys are liking, subscribing, sharing, comment, all that fun stuff, because we have so much to get here to today on Speechless. Don't worry. I'm going to talk about the Selective Service. We're going to talk about Trump, maybe his VP pick, maybe a clip or two from his, right up next, we're going to pull up a clip or two from Trump at the People's Convention. We're going to talk about his electoral stances, his VP. Then we're going to get into the Selective Service, some Pride Month updates, and so much more. But first, a quick word from my sponsor. Here we go. Freedom 2.0.
Crooked Joe is doing a hit job on Michigan manufacturing and on Detroit, the likes of which I have never seen before. You know, I got the Man of the Year in Michigan years ago, long before politics, like 12, 13 years ago. And I said, I came up and I thought the speech was good. It turned out to be very controversial. I said, why are you allowing them to steal your jobs? Why are you doing it? They're coming in these countries and they're taking all your jobs. And right now, Mexico is building the biggest car plants anywhere in the world, and they want to sell the cars back into the United States. They're stealing your jobs. Who would allow that to happen? And you know who owns the car plants being built in Mexico? China!
China! China! China! China! That's who owns the crooked car plants in Mexico. It's China.
I always love a good Donald Trump screaming China.
Look, everybody, in case you guys didn't know, that was Donald Trump at the People's Convention just last night up in Detroit, Michigan. One of the first, actually the first time that I know of since I've been a part of Turning Point USA, in which I've been part of Turning Point USA for like 7 years now, 6, 7 years. It was the first time that I've ever seen that they did an event in the Midwest post-COVID. They had like one when I was just getting started. But anyways, very, very interesting words. I don't know how much of the speech you caught, Josh Bender, history teacher out of Nevada, former talent with Speechless, formerly talented.
Yeah.
And so I bring Josh on. Josh is a good friend of mine, and I have a lot of things I want to talk to him about. There was a specific story that we're going to get to later about the selective service that we're going to discuss. But I want to talk about Trump a little bit here because he spoke obviously in Michigan last night. I don't know if you caught everything that I was discussing about how and why I think he is winning over the black vote. Curious as to your thoughts on everything going on with Trump right now in the campaign.
I mean, I think so. Obviously, people who don't know this, I wasn't really the biggest Trump fan this election season. I'm still not the biggest fan. I'm supporting him as of right now. I think after that conviction, I have no choice but to, because that conviction was insane. And I think when you look at polling, especially in the swing states, he is going to sweep the swing states at this point. I mean, here in Nevada, he is winning by like 9 points. That's way outside the margin of error. I mean, he is really going to win. And I think one thing that I saw that I know I gave him a lot of credit for was he came out and said, look, we got a ballot harvest. We got to do mail-in. We got to do everything. That's exactly what we should be doing. If the left's going to use it, we got to use it too. And he's doing it finally. I know for a while he was saying, "Oh no, only in person." Now he's like, "No, we're going to hit everything. We're going to use the mail-in." It's fantastic. It's what we need to finally do. I think he's hitting all the right points. I think he's nailing everything he needs to nail. I mean, giving a speech in Michigan is a huge one. That's. I mean, the Midwest is a swing state or is a swing area right now.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about a little bit. And so I'm actually going to, I obviously have that playing as B-roll right now, but right up on the screen, what I'm about to get up here. And if I start freezing or anything, I'm sorry, everybody. It's just because I'm trying to do like 50 different things on my computer right now. But if we look here on CNN, this is from 2020. This is the Michigan electoral map back in 2020. We can see Biden won with a nominal lead of just about 200,000 votes, less than more closer to 150,000 votes, which added up to 3-ish%. And you can see Donald Trump actually won the majority of Michigan. He lost the Detroit area, which we obviously just saw him speaking in, and the surrounding areas of that, some different little suburbs here, and then up in the Marquette area, Kalamazoo, another kind of more urban-ish area, Grand Rapids. But for the most part, he won Michigan besides that. And so that's what contributed to this 150,000 votes that he lost. It's really seeming like it could go that way. And I want to talk to everybody and I want to educate everybody as to the importance of Michigan and just a few other states, like you said, in the Midwest, this come around. So, and even using some of your knowledge that I didn't even necessarily have, I want to fill in this just to show everybody this is kind of what we're dealing with here. So obviously we have Michigan. This is kind of a general idea of what's going on with I don't know if I can close out this ad here. I'd really like to. But here we go. So we have the map here. You said Nevada, he was up by 9 right now?
Yeah, he's up by like 9 points. I think Nevada is going to be a red. It's going to be a win for him.
Okay, so we're going to put it there. And so this is 270 to win. For anybody who does not know, this is us mapping out how Donald Trump can actually win come this November. and this is the states that he has to win, the electoral votes that he has to win. Even without Nevada, what is projected off the bat is that there's 77 up in the air votes, which means that on both sides, they obviously Republicans have about 235, Democrats have about 226 based on current polling and how they went in 2022-ish, and what we seem to see. So we have Nevada, which we can add here. And so that gives us 6 more votes. Now, that really means what's up to play is Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. Josh, what do you think about the map as it currently stands? Where do you think votes will go? Do you think that there's anything that's currently marked that should be different?
Yeah, I think Florida should be deeper red. I think it's too light red.
That's fine. It doesn't really change.
It doesn't change it. I just think that was one thing. I know I use this for my students, and I said Florida should be deeper red. North Carolina should probably be a little deeper red too. I think Virginia is a toss-up. I don't think Virginia is necessarily going to go blue.
That's
think,
what I thought.
Yeah, I think Virginia could easily go Republican.
That's really, honestly, I thought it could go light Republican. I mean, with Glenn Youngkin as their governor, and even, I don't know if you heard, but Donald Trump just did an interview where somebody asked him about Glenn Youngkin, and he said about being a VP, and he wasn't against it. Youngkin did a great job during his election cycle of being very pro-Trump in the primary to win over the hard R Republicans, and then post-primary, he moderated himself out. He was hardcore on the Loudoun County stuff when there was that, because Loudoun County, actually, Virginia, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Virginia has like 6, or I think it's between 4 and 6 of the top 10 wealthiest counties in America.
Yeah.
Loudoun County being up there in the top 3. And that's also where that transgender had allegedly sexually assaulted a girl in their school bathroom. And Glenn Youngkin was on the forefront of fighting against that while also moderating a lot of his stances to win that. So I do think Virginia's a toss-up, and that's also me saying that as a soon-to-be resident of Virginia. But then let's talk about some of these others. So these other swing states that we have Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. Let's go with Georgia. What do you think? Because I have my thoughts, but what do you
Georgia, right now he is winning according to polls. I think he's going to pull it off within 1-2%. I mean, it's not going to be a big win in Georgia. I think Georgia's such a toss-up right now.
Really? Okay, so I disagree. I think that it would go light blue.
Really?
I think Georgia would be light blue, and here's why. I don't think the people of Georgia have totally forgiven him for 2020.
I do agree.
I think Raphael Warnock has a fairly solid stance with Georgia people, being both a Baptist preacher while also being a Democrat, while to a Republican seems like an oxymoronic view. To a lot of people down there is very, very attractive. And while Donald Trump is winning with the Black community, I think he's winning with the Black community more of Michigan rather than the Black community of Georgia. Depending, because he could maybe win over people with a Tim Scott VP. But
I do think Brian Kemp is not a big fan of Trump, as we know this. I mean, we know he's not a big fan of him. I think he's going to reluctantly say, "Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but he's better than Biden, and you got to vote for him." But I do see Georgia. I can see it going red, but like I said, like 1-2%, not a big win. If it goes blue, it's also going to be by about 1-2%. It's going to be one of those close states.
We'll keep that one as a toss-up then. Then let's get to Pennsylvania quickly. What do you think about Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania obviously has a very, very blue collar level within it from a lot of people that are also disgruntled due to oil and steel jobs potentially being taken away by Biden, or at least put down. And then you have a lot of people who are probably disgruntled based on the current state of the economy. So what are you thinking about Pennsylvania?
I think Pennsylvania is going red. I mean, even Fetterman, who was supposed to be this massive, left-leaning person, isn't. He's like, listen, I'm a moderate. And I think a lot of these moderate Democrats are going to go, I can't stick with Biden. Or these more moderate leaning are going to go, I'm going to take my chances on Trump again. Because again, the economy is going to be the biggest thing.
So if you're right on Pennsylvania, then Trump needs no more, and he doesn't need Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. Frankly, because of Fetterman's win in 2020, I put Pennsylvania in my opinion, similar to a Georgia in being a light blue. frankly, because of how they went in 2022. They have a lot of urban areas, or more so. I mean, you have Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and then you have places that might be a little bit smaller, but still relatively urban, like Gettysburg. And they're chock full of liberals that will turn up in droves, not for Biden, but anti-Trump. And so I'll keep that one as a toss-up, but I would still say it's probably, I think that's another one where it's 51-49 one way or the other. Now we get to Michigan, where Donald Trump just spoke in Detroit. This one, I think, is highly contentious. We saw the map that I pulled up of 2020, where it was simply only the urban areas that lost Trump 3% of the vote to Joe Biden, which was about 150,000 votes. What are you thinking about Michigan, Josh?
Michigan, I think, is going to be a real toss-up. I do think the car manufacturing is going to be Trump's saving grace there. And again, just the pure economy. I think these urban areas are hurting. Trump was willing to go to Detroit, even if it wasn't this convention. He was willing to go to Detroit and speak to them. It's going to be, I think all of these swing states are not going to be a massive victory. They're going to be a victory by like 1-2%, except for maybe Nevada. Nevada might be the biggest one.
Absolutely. Nevada, I put as a red. I agree with you on that 100%. Michigan, I could see going light red. It'd be very, very close. For the sake of the argument here, I'm going to put these just at light blue, just because that's what I thought they were going to be. But we will recognize them as we don't know, really toss-ups. So let's do, I had it on light blue there. But let's get to Wisconsin. So Wisconsin's an interesting one, because as of right now, we have 269 Republicans, 248 Democrats. Biden would really need both of these to get it close, and that would be to get him to 269. He would need both Wisconsin and Arizona. Wisconsin's an interesting one for the fact that back in 2022, they elected a Republican senator, Senator Ron Johnson, and a Democratic governor. I believe it was a man. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was a split ticket, which was really fascinating, because that doesn't happen very often in American politics, where you have two statewide offices, the senator going to the Republican and the governor going to the Democrat. How do we think it's going in 2024?
I mean, it's a toss up. I mean, because and I'll say, just as Nevada did that in last year, where they did a Republican governor, but a Democrat senator. Mm-hmm. And I think there's that toss-up. I know Wisconsin, Harris has been there a lot. Biden's been there a lot. I mean, they are spending their time there. And they're really speaking on the abortion issue in Wisconsin, which is a huge contentious issue there. I honestly, I would like to say it's going to go Trump, but I don't know. I could see it going Biden just because of that one issue.
I don't necessarily disagree. However, what I will say, the RNC is in Wisconsin.
That is a big one. I mean, I agree.
That is what I think it is because I'd like to think, I have a political science degree, and so I'd like to think that I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And that's why I'd say what Republicans would like to say, because I think Arizona is a massive, massive toss-up. I mean, when you have Carrie Lake on there, and she's kind of got her own troubles. When you see what happened in Arizona with 2022, it's really, and even back in 2020, Arizona is just muddy. It's muddy. It's almost as muddy as Georgia in terms of how disgruntled Republicans are, but how disgruntled moderates are at Republicans as well. And so it's not what I would want to leave my election up to. But if you have your national convention in Wisconsin, you can edge that vote out just a little bit. And I'm right on everything else. Virginia going light red, Georgia going light blue, Pennsylvania going light blue, Michigan going light blue, and then light red, and then Wisconsin going light red. You don't even need to worry about the Arizona. Mm-hmm. You hope you squeak it out, but you don't even have to worry about it because you win everything else. And that's really what I think is. I'm curious your thoughts, because you are from Nevada, what you would think about Arizona. But this is the way I really see it going. So then they don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that. I mean, when it comes to Arizona, so I was just in Arizona a little bit. I mean, and it was interesting because I was in Phoenix, and Phoenix is obviously, it's a city. Yeah. And there was a big billboard I passed, and it said, "I won't vote for a convicted felon." And then it said former Trump voter. And so they're really going to be pushing that. However, with it being a border state, I just don't see it. I with the border right there and with all those issues happening at the border, I can so see it going red and all these border people going and people on the border going, enough's enough, and enough people in the cities going, enough's enough. We got to at least take care of the border. And I'm willing to either stay home and not vote because I don't like either of them. And I think that's what Republicans need to rely on a lot of is people just not voting for Biden. And in him being able to squeak it out. But I could also see, because of the abortion issue again, Democrats winning that. It's such a toss-up.
No, I absolutely agree. It is a toss-up, and that's why I think you don't even need to worry about it if you can just win all those other swing states. Republicans got 279 right there. But that's my thoughts, everybody. I'll come back to this map. We will continuously use it as we keep tracking the election because I think it's important. But that's our current thoughts here on Speechless. Now, I wanted to get into, I had a lot of different things I plan on getting into today, but I don't even think I'm going to be able to get to half of it. Don't worry, everybody. Tomorrow on Breakaway USA's Monday Night Show, we will get to things. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, share, and comment. I'd really appreciate it. But there's a common topic of discussion, and it's well, I'd say common among nerds like you and I, Josh. But it's this topic of the draft. And no, we're not talking about the WNBA that everybody seems to like to watch now just because one white woman did it great. But sorry, I'm being reductive. But no, we're talking about the draft in terms of when we look at the potential of World War III happening due to the conflicts in Russia, Ukraine, the Middle East, and the rising conflicts between China and Taiwan. It seems as though we might need to show a little bit more military strength. And in terms of strength, no, I don't mean giving our men in uniform breasts or talking about how black or gay or Asian, whatever the heck our military is. No, I'm talking about actual strength, manpower, and in some cases, maybe even woman power. And so that's why the House has been discussing this new bill. I'll just bring this up as a little bit of B-roll here. But so the House of Representatives passed a measure on Friday automatically registering men aged 16 to 26 for selective service. If you guys did not know, Josh and I both are between ages 18 and 26. It was a part of the annual National Defense Authorization Act, which sets out the U.S. government's military and national security priorities for the next fiscal year. This year's NDAA authorizes $895.2 billion in military spending, a $9 billion increase from 2024. And while it hasn't been invoked in over half a century, it's mandatory for all male U.S. citizens to register for the selective service, also known as the military draft, when they turn 18. Failure to register is classified as a felony and comes with a host of legal challenges. And supporters of the amendment urge that it would cut down on bureaucratic red tape and help U.S. citizens avoid unnecessary legal issues, as well as cutting down on the taxpayer dollars going towards prosecuting those cases. The NDAA passed the House in a 217 to 199 vote, but it's unlikely to be taken up by the Senate, as Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer blasted the bill over inclusion of amendments curbing funding for abortion, trans medical care, and diversity efforts. He said, quote, unsurprisingly, the legislation coming out of the House today is loaded with anti-LGBTQ, anti-choice, and anti-environment and other divisive amendments guaranteed not to pass the Senate. As we move forward with this year's NDAA process, both sides will have to work together to pass bipartisan legislation that honors and respects all who serve in defense of our nation. So, Josh, that, of course, we were talking about this in a private group chat at one point. We wanted to talk about the draft. This entire I want to start with just this legislation. What do you think of this legislation?
So, I mean, in terms of the military spending, I think military spending is important. I did see that there's pay raises for even like low, like the lowest level of soldiers. That's great. I fully support backing men and women in uniform. When it came to this aspect, though, where they're talking about the automatic registering of the draft, I saw so many conservative commentators coming out and being like, war is coming. I look at that and go, yeah, we should have been doing this for years. I don't get how this is how this isn't smart because, for example, when I talk to my students and I go, gentlemen, when you turn 18, some of you are 18, register for the draft. It is a felony if you don't. It is a requirement by law to register for the draft. I go, we're not going to need it ever again, but just do it because it's a law. It's in law right now.
Can you talk to me? So you're a history teacher, right? Can you talk to me about the history of the draft a little bit? Like why do we have a draft? When did it start? Anything like that?
So the draft really started during the Civil War because when it came down to it, people didn't want to fight. And so I pulled up the direct acts here. So the Conscription Act of 1863 established the first national draft system. It required required registration by every male citizen and immigrant who applied for citizenship between the ages of 20 and 45. So this is when the age was a little older. Soldiers were considered to be a little older. And so you wanted the 20 to 45. That was happening, especially because we wanted to counteract the Confederacy, who was drafting as young as 13. We do know there are some 13, 14-year-olds who were drafted by the Confederacy because, they're evil. They're evil people. And so we kind of had this in place. Then when it comes to World War I. So World War I, obviously First World War, we need a ton of people. So we passed the Selective Service Act of 1917. The United States federal government to raise a national army for service in World War I through conscription. So basically it says, hey, if we don't have enough people to volunteer, we will draft them. This becomes a common practice then. They then set the ages of 18 to 26 because they want some younger people in the military. They understand younger might be better because we need to get this done. We need this war to be done quickly, essentially. So let's send a bunch of young people who are ready to fight and go. This then holds out before World War II. FDR actually does the first peacetime draft, where he actually institutes the draft during peacetime and says, hey, it was a couple months before Pearl Harbor. He actually instituted a peacetime draft because he saw the writing on the wall. We're going to need to enter this war. And so he said, let's start getting these people prepared so that when the war does hit, we could send them right over. We could send, a couple hundreds of thousand over within very quickly. Mm-hmm. We still have the draft to this day. Obviously, we haven't used it since Vietnam. Vietnam became a lot more controversial with the lottery system, where basically your birthday indicated a number, and they would just go and say, okay, numbers 1 through 10, you're in today. And that kind of wasn't the luckiest because, there was no rhyme or reason to it other than your birthday fell on a different day or on the wrong day, per se. But since Vietnam, we have not used the draft because there's been no need for it, really. Vietnam was one of the last big wars where people were used. After that, technology started becoming a new warfare. Now we use so much technology that, a lot of our men and women in uniform are even like drone pilots. They're sitting back on a base, even in the States sometimes, piloting these drones. We don't use people as much. We still need people, but we don't use them as much on the ground like how we used to.
No, absolutely. We don't engage in combat nearly in the same way due to our technological advances. And that's a whole nother conversation in of itself. But I'm interested. I'm fascinated with the idea of the draft because I feel like it's a conversation that that only gets brought up oftentimes in political circles because of how long it's been. However, do you think that, and you just said, you talked a little bit about how there's conservative commentators that are like, oh, this is them preparing for war. Do you think that there's any truth to that? You kind of mocked it a little bit. Do you think there's any truth to that maybe that there's a consideration of the draft and that's coming up as a topic of conversation because it seems more likely now than most times in recent history?
No, I don't. I genuinely don't. I think as bad as these conflicts are, Russia, Ukraine, Russia's a C-rate military fighting a D-rate military, and they're losing. Let's think about that. I'm not worried about Russia. Hamas versus Israel. I'm not worried about Hamas.
Well, also, I want to Russia real quick. I don't know if you heard, but there was actually an offer from Putin to institute a ceasefire. The terms of it were considered insane by Ukraine because it included them conceding land and not allowing and being not allowed to join NATO. But there was, there's been a conversation into ending that conflict.
Right. Usually if you are the the people making an offer, usually it means you're losing. That's just historically how it tends to work. So if they're going to Ukraine going, listen, hey, here's this. They could also be being like, look, we tried and Ukraine's not listening. I mean, there's many different reasons, but I mean, they're losing. They're losing this war.
Okay. And then so you said Hamas, you're not worried about us having to.
I'm not worried about Hamas. I mean, they're a bunch of how do I put this nicely? Savages, human trash, who are hiding in a civilian population and killing their own people for the sake of international pressure. And Israel should probably wipe them out, and they probably will. I'm not worried about them. China, their military's 30 years behind, 40 years behind us. The only worry is if they take Taiwan and get all those chips, those computer chips that they desperately need. That's the only problem. But I don't think they're going to. I think they don't want to run that risk. I don't think we're at risk of a massive war per se.
Yeah, I will say when it comes to China, if there was a time to strike, it would have started about 4-ish years ago, going until just a little bit after now. They've hit kind of their peak. If we notice, they're kind of starting in a regression. Their birth rates are down. Their economy is down. Like they're really starting to notice a lot of different hits. They're losing. If you really, by all available metrics, while they still are our number one adversary, they are starting to regress. And so they're kind of facing pressure to do so. And I could see it happening. I would argue that it would depend on this next election. If Donald Trump wins, nothing will happen. Like China will not go. Middle East will probably be taken care of pretty quickly. And Putin is done in Ukraine. I would see if Donald Trump wins, we'd kind of go back to some extent. Now, it's not to say that it would be exactly as if Biden was never in office. It would take work and effort. But if Biden were to be reelected and we still had that weakness on the world stage because the thing is that we have a world right now, and this is where we get to the entire idea of the draft. And I personally am conflicted on the idea of the draft. As it currently stands, instituting a draft today, I am very much against, because we have lived in a country where now for decades, they've been basically since the 70s. And it's only within the last few decades where it's become like over 50% actually believe this, but we've been training generations to hate this country. And so I wouldn't want to draft somebody who hates this country to go fight for it. Along with that, we also have wars where I don't necessarily believe they're justified. If I was drafted to go over to Ukraine, fuck that. I was drafted to go over, I don't know, the Israel one's a little bit different. I mean, Islamic terrorism is terrible, and I would take off any of their heads in Minecraft for legal reasons. I have to say that. But you know what I'm saying? So what are your thoughts on the draft, Josh? Because in theory, I like the idea because I do think it instills patriotism. I do like the idea of serving your country. If you notice, for some nations like Israel, it really does actually seem to help with their populace and bring them together in some way. It's almost like creating our own 9/12 if we were able to instill that level of patriotism. But as it currently stands with our generation, with people that I know, that I've met, that you've met, like if we think about the Illinois State University student government, if those people got drafted, man, might as well wave the white flag now, because those people are some of the weakest little shits I've ever met.
Yeah, we should start calling ourselves France at that point.
Exactly.
Just waving the white flag. I mean, seriously. No disrespect to France, but all the disrespect to France because, they suck.
More of a disrespect to Illinois State student government. But.
Yeah. Just the student body in general at times. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And I think when it comes to the draft, I don't see it being necessary because, again, I can see it. World War III per se, I think will be fought mainly. It's a technology war. I mean, I think the Cold War never ended. We shifted. Our enemy shifted. We're still in this Cold War. It's all tech. It's all going to be cyber attacks. It's going to be attacks on infrastructure. It's going to be AI. It's going to be things like that. We don't need as many people. We're not going to be invaded. If we were to go to war with China, we're not going to invade mainland China. It's just not going to happen. I also think, and this is controversial, but ever since the introduction of the nuclear bomb, that actually was the greatest thing that ever happened to this world. Because if you look at death tolls after that, they've gotten smaller because people don't want to risk running that limit of launching a nuke. Ever since the nuclear bomb was introduced, death tolls have decreased drastically in wars because no one wants to risk that. No one wants to risk nuclear warfare. That's why when people were talking about Putin, I go, Putin doesn't want nuclear destruction because where's the glory in leading over a pile of ashes? Who's going to write his story about how glorious he is as a leader? Where if he takes a little bit of Ukraine, someone will write how glorious he is. If China tries to take Taiwan, that does lead to war.
Well, but I feel like that acts on the presumption. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but to argue it a little bit, I feel like that acts on the presumption that the reason why anybody does anything is simply for ego.
It is.
Would you believe that the reason why anybody does anything, the reason why anybody does anything of even moderate significance is for ego?
I wouldn't say anything, but I do think there's an ego trip as a part of it. Every single good leader, even if they're an evil leader, like a Stalin, had an ego. Now, Stalin was an evil dictator, but he was a really good leader of the Soviet Union when he needed to be. He also was an egomaniac. FDR was an egomaniac. He loved himself more than anything, but he was a really good leader at the time. That's who we needed. And he was able to lead successful battles and successful wars because of that ego. Because he also knew at the end of it, if he walks out, he will be revered. We look to FDR as a great leader. We could talk about the New Deal and all that, but when we look at World War II, we go, man, he got us through that war. Like he did. Truman dropping that bomb, he made a rough decision. But we look at him and go, wow, he made a really tough decision that ended this war. But the next time a nuclear strike happens, it's not going to be that. It's going to be, we just killed everyone. Who's going to write that story?
Interesting take. So overall, draft, yes or no?
I think the draft is good in theory. I don't think it's necessarily essential anymore or necessary. I do think that just automatically registering everyone makes it so much easier. It reduces so much red tape, and it reduces the risk of people getting in trouble for maybe not necessarily knowing they need to do it.
No, I agree with that point. I think this legislation will get overblown as if it's overreach or something like that. If we are to have a draft and we are going to make it criminal not to register for it, then I guess it should be an automatic registration. But there was one thing that I wanted to bring up. Do you have a few more minutes at least? Okay. There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up because this is part of the Senate Armed Services Committee's something that they'd been talking about for a while. And this dropped on June 14th, I believe the same day that other discussion of the selective service was brought up. And so they talked about intending to require women to register for the selective service as part of the NDAA for 2025. So just next year, right now, as it currently stands, is only 18 to 26 men. And when I say men, I mean biological men, because even the Biden admin does require transgender women, so men who pretend to be women, to register for the draft. But now they're considering having women also register for the draft. What are your thoughts on this? A lot of conservatives have come out as being somewhat against this in terms of forcing women to serve. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm against it. I think when you look at any war, the problem is if you send every single young person,
women are bad at it.
Yeah, no. When you send every young person over, who's there to pick up the pieces when we get back? The whole point is that we need some people here to work, and we need young people who are willing to get in women kept this country together during World War I and World War II. They were the ones who were doing all the hard labor here while the men were away fighting. They were the ones who were keeping the homes together. They're the ones who were, women led so much in terms of victory gardens, rationing, making their own stockings, things like, anything that they needed, they were doing. It's incredible what women are doing here. And so if you take women and just say, okay, now you're being drafted as well, who the hell is going to be here left over? Seriously, who's going to be here left over to keep this country together? Because we're not going to, I'm sorry, I'm not going to trust the older people. I'm not going to do it. I love old people. I'm not going to do it. because a lot of them are retired or they're doing their own thing. We need young people who are here to take care of it.
Well, and even to take that a step further, so to take that a step further, you even think about the idea of self-preservation. If we are, like you said, to send a bunch of women over across or to war to participate in war, biologically, as much as the left would like to fight it, there is only one gender that can produce children.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we want to, in the interest of self-preservation, we should have as many women here as possible.
Yeah.
For the idea of producing children. And again, a woman, I'm not over here saying a woman's only purpose is to produce children or anything like that. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that only women can. And so they should be protected. That's, to some extent, that's why people always say, like, women and children first when you're on the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
Women and children first. Women and children first. Why? Because, and this might sound weird to people, one man with 100 women in 9 months can produce 100 children.
Yeah.
One woman with 100 men can still, barring medical anomalies like twins, triplets, etc., can only produce one child in 9 months.
Right.
So that's why, so to some extent, that's why we say women and children first, because children will grow up to be able to produce more children. It is about self-preservation at a biological level. And so, but then you also think about, and this is the thing I kind of consider, is the equal rights for equal fights argument.
Yeah.
If I was incredibly nihilistic and didn't consider the idea of self-preservation, then I would argue this is kind of what women asked for. Could you see that?
Yeah, I think to the most extreme extent, yes. If we are going for 100% full equality, then yes. But I think I think when this conversation always arises, when people can talk about the abortion, well, we don't legislate men's bodies. Well, we do with the draft. There's one thing that's large that you would legislate our bodies over, where we literally have no choice. And then you go, okay, well then fine. Do you want to be drafted? They always go, well, no. It's like, right. And I don't want you to be drafted either. In fact, I would prefer you, if I do have to be drafted, I prefer you to stay here. Because I also don't want, I guess I look at this too, as I look at the women in my life, like my sister, like my girlfriend. I don't want them in harm's way. I'm willing to put myself in harm's way to protect those two, protect my, my mom and my little cousins and all that. I'm willing to put myself in harm's way to protect them. I don't want them in harm's way at all. I think even that aspect too, I don't want them to be endangered.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. And so there's levels of the personal to the policy to the to where the only argument that I would have for that would be, you asked for it, deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the only interest that I would have. And I see we have some great comments here, like from Jim Adams, who says women shouldn't be in combat either. Josh, I did want to get your take because there is a few different updates on Trump's vice presidential pick.
Yeah.
Would you have time for that?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Awesome. I'm going to take a quick break for Freedom 2.0, and then we will be right back, everybody. Take a look and listen to this clip from our sponsor.
Blah, 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 blah. What are you talking about? Here, have some Freedom 2.0. Now, the Constitution is awesome. Type 1A.
Everybody is talking about who will be Trump's vice presidential pick, and they also seem to say that immigration is their top priority. This has been a constant debate on Speechless as well as Breakaway USA content. And so we're going to keep talking about it here as at the People's Convention, the Detroit convention hosted by Turning Point Action. They did a soft straw poll of likely Republican voters as to who they think Donald Trump should pick as his vice president. Well, it came back, according to the Post Millennial, that the vast majority believed that J.D. Vance, at a not even close margin, 43% thought J.D. Vance should be the presidential pick. undecided hit at the second most at 27. Your opinion. Here we go. I think I'm back. Can you see me?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, perfect. Josh, I'd love if you could give a little bit of an idea as to what you think about the vice presidential pick and the fact that so many are going for JD Vance.
I mean, I have to look at this two different ways. One, I think we talked about, I don't hate JD Vance as an option. I think he is a good choice. But two, they're speaking to a Midwestern audience. He's a Midwesterner. And say what you want about Midwesterners, we all hate each other, but we all love being Midwesterners. Like, as much as we love to make fun of, Indiana and all that, we love each other at the same time. We're a very, very tight bunch, I would say, in the Midwest here. And so I also think the Midwest is largely ignored, or I feel like we have been ignored in recent history. And so looking at, I think that's why Mike Pence was such a good choice, because he was a Midwesterner. Okay, here's another Midwesterner. That's a great choice, especially with all these swing states going on. Strategically, he's a great pick. I also think he's young. People like that. They're looking at these two options going, man, they're both really fucking old. We need someone young. And he does fit that. I think it's interesting that undecided is second, and then Tim Scott is a random third kind of in there.
Yeah, but again, and it's hard to even say third because 15% compared to the other candidates, sure, it's decent, but you have 43, 27, and then 15. Even the 27 is a little low, but
yeah, I mean, and looking at, the fact that Doug Burgum got 7%. Listen, I still love Doug. Doug is still one of my favorite people up there. I think he was.
Doug even got an endorsement. I don't know if you saw from Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary came out and had. I can actually get that clip pulled up if you give a little bit more thoughts on Doug Burgum. But I can get that clip pulled up real quick.
I mean, I like Doug. I've always said I think Doug's a great cabinet pick. I don't think he's VP worthy. I don't think he has the gumption for it, and I think he's a little too old. But I think he's a great cabinet choice. I think he's a great pick for the cabinet. I think he's one of those people that you look at and go, he reminds me so much of Ben Carson, just no skeletons, just goes in, does his job, and goes home. And I think that's what we need. That's what the government needs to be again, is someone who goes in, just does their job, and goes home. He can be fiery. I think Trump campaigning with him is smart. Because every time you look at him, you go, oh, it's Doug. I think he's just a cute old guy. I don't know. Every time I see him, like he's just a little old man. He's cute. He's adorable. Like it's just this cute old guy. But no, I don't think he's VP worthy. I think JD is a decent choice. I think of the choices, he's not he'd be in my top three.
Absolutely. I can't find this clip. I was seeing it all over my Twitter yesterday, and now I'm having a hard time finding it. But yes, Kevin O'Leary, I'll pull up.
Kevin O'Leary, I'll tell you what, he's been out there really, really going with Trump, talking about how great Trump is.
Yeah, he's not even. The weird thing is that Kevin O'Leary has never been a particular, he's not a conservative figure. He's always been. Oh, here's the clip right here. Okay, let's take a look and listen to this clip. Oh, it looks like my audio is messed up here. Let me present one more time. Here we go. There we go.
Very few Americans know that the richest citizens in the country for sovereign wealth are people that live in North Dakota. Doug Burgum did that. You wish, living in California, New York, anywhere else, that Burgum was vice president and did that for your constituency. He really took that state to the top of the pecking order. That's execution skills. That's what a governor does. They're the CEO of a state. So I'm a huge advocate for him, and I'd love to see Trump bring him in to the portfolio. I'll tell you why. Trump himself admitted that in his last tenure, his last mandate, he made some mistakes on who he brought into cabinet. Burgum is not a mistake. Burgum could be the get-it-done guy. Trump is bombastic. He's the vision guy. But he needs execution skills. He could say to Burgum, go fix the border, go fix energy, go fix anything. That's what Burgum does. I don't see that skill set proven in any other candidate. So I'm unabashedly supporting someone I know in business is a phenomenal leader.
And so, yeah, he is from North Dakota. And so it's not necessarily the kind of state where you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is like, handling a massive, massive economy like a New York, Chicago, or California, or New York, Illinois, or California. He's not necessarily handling all that much, but he's done a great job with what he has, and he's proven himself. And I think Kevin O'Leary, I know that he discussed a little bit about VP in another quote, but he even says in that one that he could be a good cabinet pick, and he even quotes Trump. It kind of paraphrases a Trump quote and saying that Trump says, "Hey, you say that you didn't necessarily pick all the great people. You had Anthony Fauci, you had other people surrounding you in your cabinet that you fired, that got criminally prosecuted, etc. This seems to be like a good guy that should be in there. If he is to go into a cabinet position, Doug Burgum, where do you think he should go?
Agriculture or commerce? I think he'd be great in either of those. I think agriculture would be huge because North Dakota is a huge farming state.
Yeah.
And I think he understands farmers really. I know that was one of his big things because I looked in all these candidates, and one of his big things was, I'm a farmer, or I know farmers, I know how to farm, I know we're in a farming state. I think he'd be great in agriculture. He'd actually care about farmers. He wouldn't be some guy who has a animal science degree or whatever. No, he's an actual he's worked with them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a really interesting one. I wanted to bring up Doug Burgum. I wanted to bring up JD Vance because that's who I've been favoring.
Your guy, I know.
But I also think it's an interesting point to bring up as well, is that the people that attend, just for all clarity to everybody, the people that attend the People's Convention, they're the same kind of people that attend CPAC. They're the same kind of people that watch a show like what I'm hosting right now. And so when you consider straw polling those people and who they want and who they would like to be your vice president, those are people that are going to vote for Trump, whether he picks JD Vance, Doug Burgum, any of the people on that list, or Glenn Youngkin or somebody else. Those are the people that are going to vote for Trump. And so I will say, while I like JD Vance, and that's who I would pick, I don't want Trump or anybody surrounding Trump to base their decision off of what that poll said, because those are people that are going to vote for you either way. Pick somebody that could actually help you win more people, as long as you're not deviating from your opinions and everything like that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and I think Trump, I again is, and I think I like that Trump has finally admitted that, like, listen, I made some bad choices. I'm glad he said, because one of my biggest critiques is that he never was willing to admit I did the wrong thing. He said, look, I made bad choices, and I'm happy he's finally being human and saying that, and I think this time around he's going to be smarter and go, look, who am I putting in this cabinet? Who am I working with? Because we got a lot that like I thought it was bad when I got it from Obama. It's 1,000 times worse now. So I really got to make the right choices. And I think that's why he's taking his time and not really giving any hints. He's truly letting this process play out and truly trying to figure out who his best choice is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Josh, do you have time for one more story?
Yeah.
Okay, one more story, and then I'm going to get to a Pride Month update, everybody. But I want to talk to Josh about this one because Josh, if you guys did not know, is an actor. In fact, show your tattoo of your drama. Yes, he has it's a little Pride Monthy, but he has the drama. And so I wanted to get your take on this actor Kevin Spacey, who became emotional. Obviously, he's had all these sexual assault allegations. He owned up to most of them, but he became emotional during an interview with British TV personality Piers Morgan, saying he was broke and owed millions in legal fees. The 64-year-old House of Cards star has been involved in a number of sexual assault lawsuits over the past few years. Even though Spacey won some, he said they left him with no money. His conversation with Morgan was the first long interview he's given since charges were filed. We have a quick clip I want to talk about, react to, and discuss even a little bit more about what he discussed. In fact, Kevin Spacey even owned up to his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So make sure you guys stay tuned. But here's this clip.
Where'd you live now? Well, it's funny you asked that question, because this week, where I have been living in Baltimore, is being foreclosed on. My house is being sold at auction. Really? So I have to go back to Baltimore and put all my things in storage.
Really?
So the answer to that question is I'm not quite sure where I'm going to live now, but I've been in Baltimore for since we started shooting House of Cards there.
So how long is that?
I moved there in 2012.
So this has been your home for 12 years?
Well, not this particular place, but this place has been my home and Evan and Lucy's home since 2016.
Why is it being foreclosed?
Because I can't pay the bills that I owe.
Are you facing bankruptcy?
Been a couple of times when I thought I was going to file, but we've managed to sort of dodge it, at least as of today.
How much money do you have?
None.
Really?
Well, I mean, you have some sense of legal bills.
Yeah.
I still owe a lot of legal bills that
You're
I have not been able to pay.
You're actually in debt.
Yes.
Do you mind me asking how much you owe?
It's considerable.
Millions?
Many millions, yes. The house itself is many millions.
What are you going to do?
Get back on the horse. Get back on the horse.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's being on the horse that got him into this position in the first place.
Yeah.
The hobby horse. But that is Kevin Spacey, who, as you can see, is broke, emotional, and in many ways alone. In fact, according to the Daily Wire, Spacey also discussed his connection to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, which he claims has been, quote, overblown. He tried to justify a photograph of sitting with Epstein's confidant Ghislaine Maxwell on the thrones at Buckingham Palace in 2002. He said President Bill Clinton had invited him on a humanitarian aid trip to South Africa. He said, quote, I didn't want to be around Epstein because I felt like he put the president at risk on that trip to South Africa because there were these young girls, Spacey told Morgan. We were like, who is this guy? Josh, as an actor, have you ever been sexually assaulted by Kevin Spacey?
No, I don't think I was fortunate enough to be around him.
I thought you were about to say fortunate enough to be sexually assaulted.
No, to be around him.
Kevin Spacey.
I mean, I know he liked boys my age when I started acting. It was this big thing. He liked little boys. But no, I was not around him ever. Yeah, I never had the opportunity to meet him.
Okay, but what do you think about this story? I mean, obviously it was back around in the Me Too stuff. Kevin Spacey knew that stuff was going to come out. I remember it kind of this happening because I've been a Kevin Spacey fan in terms of like prior to he was great in The Unusual Suspects, Seven, American Beauty, and more. He always had a knack for playing somebody that I wouldn't trust and somebody that is very that is very crazy.
His role in Horrible Bosses still sticks out to me.
Yeah,
it's so
psychopathic, but
yeah.
But with all of it, Kevin Spacey has been was a phenomenal actor, but obviously did absolutely horrific things, owned up to them pretty quickly. Not to say that excuses any of it, but it's different than those who deny. And now is facing this. Isn't that? What do you think about an actor who abuses the system, abuses their power? And now we really are starting to see for the first time the consequences of their actions.
I mean, you reap what you sow. And yeah, I mean, he abused the system. I mean, as someone who is in professional acting, it's your next job is not guaranteed. Your next role is not guaranteed. And so you take what you have and you're smart with it. And I think the fact that he wasn't shows a lot. I mean, yes, it's been a couple years since he's acted, but if you think about all he's been in, he should have enough money to last him for quite some time, even with legal fees, even with he should have quite a bit of money. So I just think, what did he do with it? I guess that I look at that. Where did it all go? What has he been doing with it? And yeah, I mean, he owned up to what he did. Credit where credit is due, I guess. He didn't want to hide it. He said, "Nope, this is what happened. I did do this. I knew this was coming out." I really can't apologize for it. I did it. Okay. So you admitted to it. So why should we let you back in? You know, it's not like when people tried to say, you know, George H. Like the one girl was like, oh, George H.W. Bush touched my butt. And I'm like, when he was president, like, no, now. I'm like, yeah, he can't reach much higher than that. You know, he was in a wheelchair. He can't reach much. He probably went to, you know, he's an old man. Like, stuff like that. Or when someone tried to say Keanu Reeves, I'm like, all right, we're going too far now. Come on, Keanu.
Or even like that. Well, and people did take me too far. I mean, there was Aziz Ansari who had like a bad date. She accused him of like of I believe having unconsensual sex with her or something like that. And in reality, it came out, and so then that became the headline. And then it came out like a month later, like, oh no, it was actually just a bad date where he like asked her for consent. She said no, and then he left. Like he should.
Right.
Like,
right.
And he did pretty much everything that he was supposed to.
Exactly.
But everybody remembered for a long time the headline that he was this terrible, terrible person. Kevin Spacey, of course, actually did bad things, admitted to them, and is now reaping the consequences. And I think that to some extent, this is important. I mean, it's important to see because Hollywood has been rife with this kind of inappropriate behavior. The biggest thing, though, that I notice is that I just think that this just shows that Kevin Spacey wasn't big enough because Bill Clinton is still implicated in so much regarding Jeffrey Epstein and sexual abuse, sexual assault. I mean, there's that photo or that painting of Bill Clinton of him in the dress and so and so I see Jim here says I don't feel sorry for Kevin Spacey.
No.
It's not by no means in what I'm saying. He's getting what he deserves, but what I'm saying is that it's what's sad to see is that Kevin Spacey will get punished for what he does, but we have so many people. I mean, where's Epstein's client list? We have it. We have the little black book. We have it. Where are those people? Why is there no investigation into Bill Clinton, who was so close with Epstein? Right. Why do we not know? Why, even if Donald Trump is, I want to know who these people are. And this is what it shows me is that Kevin Spacey was not big enough to be protected.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, and he's sitting there crying and it's like, you know, I'm sure he's trying to feel the emotions, but me goes, well, he's an actor.
Well, that's why the Greek would not allow for actors, those involved in drama, ancient Greeks would not allow them to participate in court.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be allowed to do anything in the legal system because they were considered professional liars is what they were called.
I mean, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're totally right.
So that's interesting. I just thought I'd bring it up to you because Josh is an actor. You can go watch the music video for Brett Eldridge's song, Wanna Be That Song.
Yeah.
And you will see a young version of Josh.
Very young. The Josh that Kevin Spacey would have liked.
The Josh that Kevin Spacey would have liked. And proof that Josh actually has talked to a woman. So
yeah, you know.
So there's that. Everybody, Josh, I have to get to my Pride Month update, but thank you so much for joining. Any last words that you'd like to say to the viewers?
No, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day to my dad, Bob. I love you. I miss you. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Yeah, that's all I got.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh, and everybody. Real quick word from our sponsor. So, of course, everybody, it is June, the gayest month of the year. And so we have to talk about what these gays are doing to celebrate because we have to understand that even though it is one of the 7 deadly sins, being gay is still apparently something worth celebrating for a whole 30 days. And so not only do they celebrate with scantily clad parades in front of your children, story hours of men who dress up like women, and frankly, hookers. No, they also do things such as changing traffic laws. This is a real thing out of the Daily Wire. We'll take a look at it right here. LA removes homophobic U-turn signs. And the jokes write themselves. This is true. This is a real thing. Like I said, out of the Daily Wire. The city council members of Los Angeles reportedly removed no U-turn signs from a gay neighborhood over concerns that they would be viewed as, quote, homophobic. I'm trying to figure out how the hell not having a U-turn and obeying a traffic law is homophobic. Is at this point the red light, is that homophobic? Is the red light homophobic because it's telling you to stop? And as we know, the gays just won't stop. According to the Los Angeles NBC News affiliate, the signs were removed. Had been put up in 1997 after locals complained about gay men, quote, cruising in the residential areas near popular gay bars while looking for dates. Several no cruising signs were put up around the same time and were taken down after a Silver Lake neighborhood council vote in 2011. A constituent bought the remaining no U-turn signs brought the signs to LA City Council member Nithya Raman, which said got the bureaucratic ball rolling. A quote podcast mentioned that there had been no cruising signs along Hyperion that had been removed in 2011, but the 9 signs that still remained on Griffith Park Boulevard. Our very own Silver Lake constituent, Donovan Daughtry, heard the episode, and in May of 2022, he reached out to Silver Lake, the field deputy at the time. And so this is ultimately what happened. We can take a look and listen to the ABC News affiliate right here and exactly what they had to say about this here.
LA City Council members Hugo Soto Martinez and Nithya Raman were on hand today to help remove the signs. They say the no cruising and no U-turn signs were put up in the 1990s to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people.
I was also surprised that these these U-turn signs were still up. And at first, they seem a little, oh, okay, it's just a no U-turn sign. But when you learn the history of it and you realize that these were used to profile gay people, it's so important that we have these removed.
The LA City Council members say the signs were put up after the gay community began to grow and because there was a gay bar in that area.
So let's remove the signs that say you're not supposed to have a U-turn there, because apparently, and this is the thing when it comes to all this, is who would have known? Who would have known? This would have meant nothing to anybody. Nobody would have noticed. Nobody would have thought about this. Nobody looks at that. I guarantee you, nobody drives past that no U-turn sign and thinks, ha, we're really getting you, gay people, with that no U-turn sign. Like, what the heck? Then nobody thinks that that's the defamatory thing. The best part of this is that literally no one would know that a no U-turn sign would have ever meant anything other than don't have a U-turn. But what that really means is that there is no group that wants to be more oppressed than the LGBTQ community. They live in Los Angeles, in which you can literally take a shit in front of Nancy Pelosi's house. I believe it's in LA. Maybe it's not right in downtown LA, but I know it's in California. You can literally take a shit on the street and not get in trouble for it. You could probably commit sodomy on Hollywood Boulevard and not get in trouble for it. You can be Fabian, who is part of Breaking UA USA. He's probably never going to see that. But you can be Fabian and get away with it. In LA. LA is one of the gayest cities in America. But because of these no U-turn signs, they said, oh, we're still oppressed. We're still oppressed. All of us. Men that look like that. These low T individuals that are laughable. Laughable. Up next, get rid of stop signs. Because that's homophobic too, or racist or some shit. That's what it's going to be. This is crazy. This is the world we are living in, everybody. But the way that I see it is that this Pride Month is actually shaping up to not necessarily be one of the worst. No, this Pride Month, actually, we're seeing some wins, interestingly enough. Yeah, okay, maybe they're still winning in LA. But then we have things like this. Leah Thomas, who we know is the transgender swimmer who was a less than average biological male competing now as a woman, has actually lost his legal battle. Leah Thomas loses the legal battle over rules preventing trans-identifying swimmers from competing in elite women's races. According to the Daily Wire, trans-identifying swimmer Leah Thomas lost the legal challenge over the rules that prevent transgender swimmers from competing in elite women's races, including the Olympics. Thomas mounted, pun maybe intended, the legal challenge against the World Aquatics earlier this year, reportedly with his eyes set on competing against women in the Olympics. But in a ruling released Wednesday of last week, the Court for Arbitration of Sport dismissed Thomas' request for arbitration. World Aquatics, which is recognized by the International Olympic Committee, banned male swimmers from competing in women's swimming in 2022, creating an open category for trans swimmers. Within that, they said the panel concludes that Thomas's lacks standing to challenge the policy and operational requirements in the framework of the present proceedings, the court said. According to the ruling, USA Swimming granted Thomas' request for self-identity verification, but the judges said USA Swimming had no authority to grant Thomas that request and modify such scope of application. World Aquatics is dedicated to fostering an environment that promotes fairness, respect, equal opportunities for athletes of all genders, and we reaffirm that pledge, the governing body added. Our policies and practices are continuously evaluated to ensure they align with these core values, which led to the introduction of the open category, which is what a lot of people say, right? A lot of people say, look, we don't want biological men competing against women, but if you want to like pretend that you're a woman and you're a man, we'll provide an open category for anybody. We remain committed to working collaboratively with all stakeholders to uphold the principles of inclusivity and remain confident that our gender inclusion policy represents a fair approach. Thomas, the former UPenn swimmer, was cast into the spotlight after he tied with Riley Gaines. So Riley Gaines actually responded to this, interestingly enough, and Riley Gaines, being similar to me, the biggest bigot and transphobe that you could possibly have, said, "Great news! Leah Thomas won't be able to compete in women's categories at the Olympics or any other elite competition. He just lost his legal battle in the Court of Arbitration for Sports ruling. This is a victory for women and girls everywhere." And it absolutely is. And this is what I'm saying, is that surprisingly, look, this year, we actually have a Pride Month that is not a month in which you have to keep your mouth shut, in which you have to bite your tongue. No, in fact, it's one in which we are actually starting to win the culture back. We have sports teams that are no longer pushing the LGBTQ crap. There's several NFL teams that are not doing anything for it. They didn't change their logo, anything. We have MLB teams as well that are doing similar. We have so many people that are just fed up with this. We have Bud Light hasn't posted anything about Pride as far as I know. Other companies are just avoiding it, or at least drastically minimizing what they do. We are on a route to get Pride Month to be what it really should be. Either a thing of the past or something that only very specific people celebrate and doesn't need to be something that's subjected to every man, woman, and child in existence. And it's really because of the grotesqueness of it. However, we do still have discrimination happening on the basis of being gay or LGBTQ+. In fact, Maine is opening up new publicly funded affordable housing, and there's a specific qualification that you have to live in this housing. Take a look and a listen. Oh, I see that there was no sound of this video. Don't worry, I will get it back. Give me one moment. Here we go.
A plan to build Maine's first affordable LGBTQ plus housing development is kicking into high gear.
The complex is set to break ground in the matter of months next to the Equality Community Center in downtown Portland. But as News Center Maine's Zach Blanchard reports, it's about so much more than just a building.
For a month, actually. For Skip Brushaber, the Equality Community Center is like home.
Honesty, love, and safety.
His art is on display here for Pride Month. A way for him to share his story, the joy and the pain.
It's actually very therapeutic for me. It's very, it's a gift.
This piece is of his partner, Sylvie, a trans woman, an activist, a poet. She died by suicide just 3 years ago.
Sometimes when I'm here,
that is sad.
I definitely feel her presence. I definitely feel that, she's here.
It's stories like Skip's and countless others that make this center so important.
It's very important.
Ed Gardner, one of the founders of the ECC, is leading the effort to take its mission to the next level.
I wanted to be able to give back to that community that helped me grow and thrive here in Portland.
He donated this parking lot next door that will soon be home to the state's first LGBTQ plus affordable housing facility. It will include 54 affordable units, a cafe, and critical resources for members of the community 55 years and older. And Gardner hopes it's just the start.
I think it's important that we keep it going, not just in the big cities, but where people live.
The one-of-a-kind project is set to break ground in the fall. And already, Executive Director Chris O'Connor says there's a lot of interest.
We've gotten, I think, 55 people within 2 days of being on social media. We're at Pride festivals all across Southern Maine this month, promoting specifically that this housing project is going to happen.
For Skip, it's a project filled with love and acceptance because it's so much more than a building. It's a community.
These people carry me.
In Portland, Zach Blanchard, News Center, Maine.
The project is set to be complete by spring of 2026. It's largely being funded by donations as well as support from Maine Housing and the City of Portland. You can learn more about the project or help support the project by visiting eccmaine.org.
So if you want to go support that, you absolutely can. What I really want to bring up when it comes to this, because he brought up an individual suicide. It looked as though that person might have been a transgender. When we look at the suicide rate in this community, and especially those of the transgenders, we have to wonder as to what is the reasoning. The left will constantly tell you in a shallow response that the reason of that is because of non-acceptance. And however, not feeling accepted is sad, but if you need every single person, every individual's validation, even a stranger's validation to exist, then you're not mentally well. And you're never going to get everyone's validation. I get constantly, for my beliefs, for believing that you should have an ID to vote, I get called racist. That is by no means validating of my worldview. I get called homophobic simply for being Christian. I'm not afraid. If I was homophobic, does that mean a fear of spiders would mean that I don't think spiders should get married? No, that's not how it works. But I digress. My point being is people don't validate my existence, and I'm not out here about to commit suicide. And so we need to look as to how do we actually deal with things. Is the way that we deal with a mental health crisis to validate every feeling, even if it's patently wrong? No. It's to say, why do you feel that way? Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's have a conversation. Now, when it comes to this entire housing development here, if it's entirely private, do what you want. But if somebody were to build a housing development that said you're no LGBTQ members, then they should absolutely be allowed to do that too. If we're going to normalize a discriminatory practice, then make it equal. this is what I say about just about everything too, though, is I say this when it comes to when we have that gay baker out of Colorado, So look, a business's purpose at a primary level is to provide an income, is to generate profit. And so if you're going to deny business and then also potentially put that stain on your business that you do deny business, then you're going to sacrifice that income. Now, if it's for the sake of a moral quandary, go for it. I'm not going to deny you. But if we're going to allow that right, to allow discrimination based on one group, then we have to allow it for every single group. And we truly should, for the purpose, as long as it's not taxpayer funded, as long as it's entirely private, we should, for the purpose of allowing bad ideas to be rooted out by good ones. Because if that business denies somebody for being Christian, for being gay, for being black, for being white, and then enough people are like, I don't like that, I'm not going to patronize that business will not be able to survive, and it'll be out. It'll be on the way out. And that is what we need. A truly competitive free market. So that's a long way of saying I'm actually not against this housing development in theory. I'm against it because of how society will treat that and praise that, while saying that a Christian only housing development would be something that would be looked down upon by the same people. That's what I would say when it comes to this housing development. But that's pretty much my Pride Month update for all of you. I have one more thing I wanted to get to in this show, which we will, but I also want to make sure I get to comments. So make sure you guys are commenting. I appreciate it. There was one comment I saw specifically. Adam Carolla interviewed Riley Gaines. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I actually interviewed Riley Gaines. Just about a year ago, I came out with on my channel an interview with Riley Gaines. I can actually probably go find it now and put it in the comments. With Kev Ferris, Riley Gaines. I interviewed Riley Gaines. I had a great interview with her just about a year ago. June 11th. So yeah, a year and 5 days ago is when I talked with Riley Gaines. And I posted it. So if you were interested, I'm going to put that interview. So here's that. If you guys want to go check out the Riley Gaines interview that I did about a year ago, I saw that Jim had brought that up because I talked to her about a lot of these kinds of things. I talked to her about Leah Thomas, William Thomas, and a lot of that. So I see Andrea. Thank you so much for being in the chat, for letting me know there was no sound. This is the start of tribalization. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but I wanted to get to this last segment here before I have to go for tonight. There's this thing I've seen, and it's a long-standing thing, not just in the New York Post, but in a lot of different publications. It's this thing called Dear Abby. And I like to think that I am fun to get advice from. Maybe not always the best advice, but I've been told that I give unsolicited advice in a very interesting way. And so I'm going to give some unsolicited advice to people that wrote into somebody that was not me, because I think it'd be fun. So this is my new segment called Dear Kev. Dear Kev. And you guys could actually email me if you want to. If you want if you want advice and you want to actually solicit advice, you guys can email me, speechlesskp@gmail.com, and I will give you said advice. But I'm going to start with somebody who did not ask me for this advice. We'll probably never see this. But this is a Dear Abby article from the New York Post. It says, Dear Abby. And in this case, we're going to say, Dear Kev, I want to have sex with my doorman, but we are both married. Well, whoever this is, I would have a simple answer. Don't. But let's read on a little bit, see what's actually said. Dear Abby, I love my doorman. I am married and older than he is. He is married too. I've known him for years and I flirt with him all the time. He flirts back and gets really red in the face. Okay, so this in and of itself, this depends. This is a conversation you would need to have with your spouse. But that in and of itself, to me, is cheating. If you are flirting with anybody consciously or unconsciously, it is a form of infidelity. And so if you are flirting with somebody, and this case, you know it. If you didn't know it and you're like, oh man, I actually just did that, and you feel bad about it, okay, that's one thing. Admit to it, apologize, move on. But you're already cheating on your spouse, which is insane and a sin. One day he came up to my apartment to help me with something. I purposefully had on a see-through slip. I wanted to kiss him. I did catch him staring at me, but he was very polite and didn't try anything. I'm just wondering whether I should try to kiss him next time or try to stay away from him. He really makes me crazy. Big crush in New York. Of course, this person's from New York. Dear crush, you owe your doorman an apology for what you have been doing. If you care at all for this person, do not jeopardize his job for taking this further. If you do, this adventure will not have an ending. So this is what Abby says, which I think is hilarious. Is this person just goes, I love my doorman. I want to have sex with my doorman. Don't. And then Abby here says, it's about his job. Respectfully, this is not at all about his job. This is about so much more than his job. I also noticed that I'm frozen right now. I hope you guys can maybe see me. Give me 30 seconds to get back here. Give me 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Very sorry about that, everybody. I am back. Thank you for waiting for a moment, but let's get back to the Dear Abby stuff that I had. No, simple answer. Yes, okay, his job maybe has something to do with it, but it's not really about his job. It's much more about the infidelity, the moral quandary. This person just like, maybe don't have sex with him because it could get him fired. You're married. You should have so much more. I am done with reading whatever Abby says. We're going to just only rely on what Kev says because Kev is a better advisor than Abby. Let's get to the next one. My stepdaughter has an 11-year-old daughter. I'll call Christina. Christina is very well behaved, but she's being taught at home that love is measured in dollars. She is constantly hinting about gifts and candy she wants. It has been so bad that when I keep her, I postpone errands because she invariably finds something in every store that she needs or wants. I don't mind buying her things from time to time, but the items I purchase are oftentimes returned to the store or sold by her mother. Although Christina is an only child, she is not my only grandchild. If I buy gifts for another grandchild, I have to hide it because Christina thinks it's hers. If she sees money on my dresser, she talks about how much cash others have given her. She helps herself to our candy dish without asking permission and sometimes muses about how many gifts dead relatives would have given to her if they were still alive. Then there's her birthday. After Christmas each year, she starts hinting that her birthday is coming up. Abby, she was born in July. For 6 months, almost without exception, she brings up her birthday in every conversation until she's sure I have bought her a gift. I've tried a variety of responses, but she's not getting the hint. Don't even suggest that I talk with her parents about it because they spend money they don't have to buy her gifts and then struggle to pay bills. They also don't seem to appreciate what we do for them and don't always thank us. Any other suggestion you could give me would be appreciated. This is where the tough love should come in. That's what I believe. Tough love should come into this one. For this kid, you stop buying them crap. If they're really, truly not appreciative by any means, if they're always asking for more and more and more. But also, when you get them something, enjoy it with them. Enjoy it with them. And actually show, hey, this one thing, I got it for you, and I want you to enjoy this one thing and be appreciative of this one thing. And even further with that, make them earn something. Say, oh, that thing you want, that candy you want, if you clean the bathroom, if you clean the room, if you, I don't know, put your laundry in the basket, if you put your toys away, if you do something, then I'll get you that toy and you'll have earned it. Teach them that things are not just handed to them in this world, that they have to do something for it. They have to earn it, or they have to pay back for it. Teach them what their parents are not teaching. And that's the thing, is that these parents, by going and doing, and actually just having, spending money that they don't have and using the credit card or whatever to buy this kid, they're teaching their kid this bad idea that you should spend money you don't have constantly and be struggling to pay bills for it. Look, everybody should build up credit. And I'm not saying not to do that. But don't spend money you don't have on buying your kids toys or candy. And if they're going for the candy dish and you want them to ask permission, slap their hand away and say, no, hide the candy dish. I don't know why you need to write into the New York Post for this one. Just be the parent that their parent isn't being. That's what I would say. Let's see. Is there another one here? Dear readers, happy Father's Day. That's the final thing. And that was going to be also what I would say to everybody today. Happy Father's Day, everybody. There's an importance to Father's Day. There's a beauty to this day. And I didn't cover it all that much today. I've covered it in years past. I brought my dad onto the show. I did last year. If you guys want to go check that out, I guarantee if you go to my channel and just search Father's Day, you'll be able to find it. But there is a significant reasoning and deal to Father's Day. I'll admit, I believe it's a little hallmarky in terms of, it's just like Mother's Day. It's a little hallmarky, but it is a great time to have a reminder that fathers matter and that fathers are significant. Men oftentimes go unrecognized in society. In fact, while everybody knows this is the gay month, you might not know that this is also Men's Mental Health Month. And so to have Father's Day in it is great. So thank your dad. And if your dad is no longer with us, I'm praying for you and pray for him, because while not everybody necessarily has a great relationship with their father, and it's usually actually a stereotype that many people don't, good fathers are out there and they play a significant role. And they also are meant to be the reflection of the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. So think about that. And if you're a father, thank you. And also think about your role as a reflection for your family of God the Father. So happy Father's Day, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for considering to, and hopefully actually liking this video, subscribing to the channel, commenting what you think, sharing it with your friends, and all that fun stuff. If you missed even a minute, don't worry. You can go check it out. Make sure you check out my YouTube channel, Speechless with Kev Ferris. Like, subscribe, comment, share, everything under the sun. Amen is right. Thank you, Jim, Andrea, Demon Girl, and everybody who commented. God bless you. God bless America. And until next time, you have been watching Speechless.